Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be going over professions for Rogue in TBC and what professions you should go based on the type of content you're looking to do. We're not going to be talking about gold making or how you can use these professions in any way other than increasing your character's power, whether it be PvP or PvE. So let's get right into it and start with blacksmithing. Blacksmithing is one of the best early game professions for Rogue. You're able to create a really powerful mace in the Drakefist hammer and further upgrade it to Dragon Maul just by doing heroic dungeons. And you obviously have to max out blacksmithing and use a bunch of materials to create this item, but this is something you can do pre-raid, and you don't even have to be a raider if you want to craft this item. It is really powerful and on par with the best items in tier 4. You can see it actually does more DPS than the best weapon in Karazhan and about the same DPS as the gladiator weapons for season 1. So really powerful weapon, on par, right at the top of the best in slot items for weapons in phase 1. So extremely powerful. The big reasons to go blacksmithing would be, number one, to guarantee yourself an extremely powerful weapon when you don't have to rely on RNG and you don't have to rely on hitting a certain arena rating. So no matter what happens, you will get Dragon Maul, and as soon as you farm it, you get it. You don't have to wait on any drops. You don't have to wait on weeks to accumulate arena points. And going a step further, another benefit of the weapon is it frees you from having to invest in a different weapon. So you don't have to go and get any other weapon. You have Dragon Maul, which means you can save DKP in a DKP guild on something like Spikeblade. And you can also save arena points on Gladiator Slicer in PvP and use your points in other pieces of gear like upgrading your set bonus. So that's basically the real reasons to go with blacksmithing. Now, I will caution you that when you upgrade Dragon Strike in phase 2, and you are able to upgrade this by killing Lady Vash and Kael'thas, and these nether vortexes drop, number one, it might be more difficult than you expect to upgrade your mace because there's going to be a lot of people in the raid that might want those nether vortexes for other things. And number two, it's just not quite as good as Dragon Maul when you look at the other tier 5 competition, because in tier 5 the weapons have just improved. The speed of weapons is slower, the stats of the weapons is better, and they do more DPS. If you look at the best weapon that you could get from raid in tier 4, it actually did significantly less DPS than Dragon Maul. Now in phase 2 or tier 5, you're actually seeing that some of the weapons just do more DPS than Dragon Strike, and they also have the 2.7 speed to match, while at least being competitive in the DPS department across the other options. So really good phase 1, not as good phase 2, and phase 3 and onward, blacksmithing is completely worthless. The only reason you were going blacksmithing was for a mace. So if you no longer need the mace, well, it's just not really worth anything. So keep that in mind, that blacksmithing is really an early game play. So if you've got a lot of gold, if you want to guarantee yourself a weapon, it's a great idea. However, if you're someone that's maybe, not the richest, coming into TBC with a small reserves of gold, maybe not worth going for blacksmithing, considering you're just one drop away from raid and kind of invalidating blacksmithing, and it's not like it scales into late game or has much value, and you are eventually going to try and probably replace the items anyway. And important to mention, leveling blacksmithing is expensive, and crafting the hammer is also very expensive. On to jewel crafting. Now, for jewel crafting, we have the Panther as kind of one of the highlights of jewel crafting, and this is going to be especially good for PvPers. And you're going to see a lot of arena players going with jewel crafting simply because this Panther trinket gives you an effective stealth level, which makes you harder to find in arena. So that's the main reason you're going to see people playing jewel crafting. You're also going to see that it gets upgraded in Sunwell to have a reduced cooldown on the active, and also, more base attack power as well. So great item early, and it gets upgraded later. BIS for PvP in Arena. Other items, you have the hard corium choker, which comes out in Sunwell. This is best in slot in both Raid and Arena, so really good necklace. Obviously, no one else can get it except jewel crafting. You also have the figurine of the boar. I thought I'd mention it because we talked about the panther. This one's not as important because it's not as good, but you can summon a boar to fight with you, and it does give you some static attack power, so there's that. You also have the gems. Now, there are gems that come later in Classic, and you're able to equip these. They're unique equipped, and they have more stats than normal gems would give, but they're not something that is going to be coming out for a very long time. They are Phase 5 and come from Sunwell. Moving past that to engineering, we have the hypervision goggles, 9 vulnerability belt, enchanted helmet, and a bunch of other gadgets. These are kind of what you come to expect from NG when it comes to TBC. Now, there is a couple things that are disappointing in TBC, and that's that items like the Rocket Boots Extreme are not available in Arena, as well as the Gnomish Poultryizer. So these are some really cool items, for example, in Battlegrounds and World PvP, but they are not going to be usable in Arena. You also have items like Rocket Launcher that are cool gadgets, but maybe not necessarily practically usable in Arena. Same goes for the Foreman's Enchanted Helm. Kind of a cool thing, but are you really going to be equipping this every Arena game? Probably not. You do have these Gnomish Battle Goggles that are really bad, but I thought I'd throw them in there. You got 9 vulnerability belt, which is kind of a finicky gadget. But one of the better options is the hypervision goggles, and these can increase your stealth detection for 15 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown, and these can be used as a rogue to try and find other rogues. So this is a nice item for a rogue in Arena as well. Now, you might be, and I guess other things to mention while we're at it, we'll talk about the Sapper charge. Sapper, same thing as the Sapper in Classic, except, upgraded to TBC, so it does more damage to you and the enemies. And just like in Classic, you can use it to hit rogues who vanish to pull them out of stealth, and you can use it in like Raid or large-scale PvP to hit a lot of enemies at once. So definitely makes it a more viable option for PvE rogues. But you also have the flying mounts, if that's your thing, the flying helicopter thingies. So those are always, increasing your damage in Raid if you arrived stylishly, right? But over to the last bit for engineering is going to be the Phase 2 and on items. So the Phase 2 goggles and the Phase 5 goggles and the teleporters. So a lot of you probably have been waiting, like, why aren't you talking about the good goggles? Well, the reason is they don't come out until Phase 2. Originally, these came out in Black Temple, but Blizzard made a post saying that they would come out with the Tier 5 content, so that'll be Phase 2. These goggles are especially good because they have the text that says slightly increases your stealth detection. This makes them best in slot in Arena, as it gives you the ability to find other rogues. But when it comes to raiding, these aren't quite as good. When they come out, they're not BIS. And when the upgraded goggles come out in Sunwell, they're also not BIS. So when it comes to PvE, not the greatest, but in PvP, best in slot for detecting enemies in both iterations. Down to the teleporters, you also get teleports if you go engineering on, long cooldowns. You've got the upgraded ones in TBC that go to Everlook and Toshley Station in Blade's Edge Mountain. So, Everlook, is Classic. You've got Area 52 in Toshley Station. So, it can also help you figure out whether you're going to go Goblin or Gnomish. I guess just quickly to touch on if you should go Goblin or Gnomish. I personally would base your decision off of the teleporters and these two gadgets. There's not a whole lot else to really look at. It's mainly just, do you want to shoot a rocket at people or do you want to turn people into chickens? Neither's really, one is not allowed in Arena, the other doesn't play a big part in Arena. And, if you really can't tell, pick Goblin, because Area 52 is a better teleport than Toshley's Station. So I'll be going Goblin because I think the Goblet rocket launcher is pretty cool, but I definitely understand people wanting to turn people into chickens in World PvP. On to leatherworking. So for leatherworking, it is, again, relatively simple profession. If you're going to go leatherworking, you're going to do it because of one of two things: the crafted armor or the drums. So first up, we'll talk about the drums. Drums give your group a little bit of a haste bonus, and they're nice to have at least one leatherworker in the group. Now, when it comes to drums, rogues are really good at using drums because they do not cause you to cancel your auto attack. On the beta, I was able to use the drums while auto attacking and continue auto attacking. So you're just going to use up your energy, click drums, and it doesn't even really affect you that you had to use drums. It doesn't really slow you down. So definitely a nice bonus there for raiding. You also have, obviously, the crafted gear. Primal Strike is relatively decent early on, but not best in slot in phase 1. Primal Storm is another leatherworking only option, but it's not very good. Moving on, later in the game, there is a chest piece that is best in slot in Sunwell, and it is the best chest in the entire game, but it only for PvE, and in PvE, it's not by a huge margin, but it is technically the best option, and would only get close to, the set or the token equivalent from Sunwell. So really good chest in Sunwell. Other items to mention: there's bind on pickup boots that you can get in tier 5 content that are from leatherworking, but they're really bad. They're worse than Karazhan boots, so these are really, really not good. You also have Swift Strike shoulders, which come in tier 6 content in Black Temple, but again, these are not best in slot, but they can be good until you get the best in slot Slayer shoulders. But yeah, not really too powerful. So generally speaking, when we're looking at leatherworking, I would not recommend going leatherworking unless you were interested in drums, because besides drums, you're really only looking at Carapace as a really big increase for playing leatherworking. But you definitely do have the option to go Primal Strike early, and it is decent while you're gearing up, although it is going to be outclassed by a couple raid items and some heroic dungeon items in tier 4 content. So that's leatherworking. On to enchanting. Well, this is going to be really quick. The only thing you gain personally from yourself being an enchanter is an enchant that gives your ring 4 stats. You can enchant both rings. 4 stats is 4 stats. That's 4 agility, 4 strength. It's by no means terrible, but by no means super high impact. And, very small bonus, but a bonus nonetheless if you are looking for a small increase to your character and you otherwise, want to be enchanting. That's what you get. You also can do weapon damage, by the way, but most of the time you're just going to go with +4 stats instead of the +2 weapon damage. But thought I'd mention that. On to alchemy. Not a huge reason to play alchemy, but for completionist sake, I thought I'd add it to the list. Increases the effect that healing and mana potions have on the wearer. Not very good. And 108 attack power. The early alchemist stone just has some stats on it and that same effect. And the assassin alchemist stone comes out in Sunwell patch. So, in summary, blacksmithing is really good early for both PvE and PvP. Jewel crafting is really good for PvP the entirety of the game, and not super great for PvE. Engineering is very good for PvP from phase 2 and on, and can still be amazing in world PvP the entirety of the game. When it comes to PvE, you're mainly just using Sapper, and that's really all you're going to get. I didn't mention it here because it's not TBC, but there's still some pets from Classic that you can use from Engineering. Like you can use the Gnomish Chicken still if you want in Raid. Summon it before the pool, kind of like Classic. But yeah, in PvE, not a lot except for Sappers when it comes to raiding. You can throw Dynamite and stuff too, just like in Classic. But in terms of these specific gadgets, not a lot there, but definitely good for world PvP and arenas from season 2 and on. Over to leatherworking, really just going to be best for raiders that are interested in drums, and otherwise you'll pick up along the way, potentially a decent set of gear early on if you invest in Primal Strike, and then you do at least get the best in slot item later on. So I would recommend, if you are a raider, going with leatherworking and engineering with blacksmithing mixed in if you want to guarantee the weapon. So I would pick one of those professions, or one or two of those professions. When it comes to PvPing, I would go with blacksmithing, jewel crafting, or engineering. And I generally would not recommend enchanting or alchemy unless you otherwise wanted the profession. Although I will admit that enchanting does give you a static bonus to your character, and it is something you can definitely go for if none of these other professions catch your eye. So that's all 4 professions. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys next time.